of State for Budget and National Planning, and Director General of Budget Office, Ben Akabweze, for parliamentary scrutiny. The minister gave a highlight of Nigeria's current debt profile.
As of 30th of December 2019, the total domestic debt stock was 18.378 trillion naira. As at the end of December last year, the total stock of the external debt was 9.022 trillion.
The minister listed the projects under this proposed borrowing. These include COVID-19 support fund of $600 million, strengthening of healthcare system, $125 million, and the establishment of comprehensive COVID-19 testing centers in all states of the Federation.
From the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, $3.4 billion. This is a facility that has an interest rate of 1% and a tenure of 5 years with a grace period of 3 years.
The COVID-19 pandemic that's ravaging everywhere, I think we need to revise our budget, and the funding has to be provided.
The minister and her team also appeared before the Senate Committee on Finance, this time alongside the Accountant General of the Federation, Comptroller General of Nigerian Customs Service, Chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, and the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, where she briefed the committee on the rationale behind the revised medium-term expenditure framework 2020 to 2022 and fiscal strategy paper.
Are we saying that $25 is the appropriate figure, benchmark that should be used?
We wanted to be conservative, and we projected a lower price for the whole year of $25 per barrel.
Why is Nigeria cost of production of a barrel of crude oil is the most expensive in the world?
Security is quite a huge chunk of the cost that we see, whether for the OPEX or for the CAPEX.
The minister also informed the committee that the federal government has cut down on expenditures of most of its ministries, departments and agencies. From the National Assembly, Ignatius Nkwo, NTA News.
All right, it's time we join our correspondent, Mitari Ikben, to give us the highlight of what played out at the daily briefing by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19. Mitari.
The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 has announced the lifting of a number of restrictions which were previously put in place to combat the spread of the coronavirus pandemic. And meanwhile, while some restrictions are being lifted, others are sustained. Some of the restrictions lifted is that places of worship can now reopen based on PTF guidelines and protocols put in place by the state government. Also, domestic flights are to resume from the 21st of June with precautionary measures. Again, government offices can now resume from Mondays to Fridays between the hours of 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., but only for workers from grade level 14 and above. And also banks can now commence full operations. But among the restrictions that have been sustained is that there is still the ban on interstate travel except for essential services. Also, the overnight curfew is still in place, but now to be between the hours of 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. Also, schools are to remain closed. I'm now being joined by the national coordinator of the Presidential Task Force, Dr. Sani Aliu, who will just give a little bit into this phase, which we understand will last between the 2nd of June to the 29th of June. Dr. Sani Aliu, on one hand, schools are to remain closed. On the other hand, worship places are to be open. What's the rationale for these new set of decisions?
So a lot of the decisions we take are based on modeling, they're based on science and the data we have, as well as experiences of COVID when it comes to other parts of the world. One of the issues with schools is the fact that we know how difficult it is to maintain those restrictive measures that we have put up among children. Secondly, children are very good incubators when it comes to viral infections. They don't necessarily present with a lot of symptoms, but they carry those symptoms home, particularly if you have elderly relatives, grandparents, etc. And these are the ones that are most at risk. So when it comes to schools, it's a pragmatic decision. We are more concerned about those that are about to graduate or certify or move to the next level. And because we don't want that to impact, to affect the subsequent academic year, that's why we are trying to at least make some accommodation. And we've asked the Ministry of Education to come up with a policy and work with the schools. When it comes to religious places of worship, just to make it very clear, we are not opening up completely and normalizing things. It's still very restrictive. They have to abide by guidelines issued by PTF in terms of the non-pharmaceutical interventions, and the state governments will need to work with religious authorities to have a system that will enable us continue to protect our most vulnerable. Remember, who are those that go to religious institutions, places of worship? A lot of them are above the age of 60, and these are the people that are most at risk of severe illness. The message we want to send out is that even though people are talking about relaxing, this thing is far from over. It's far from over. If you don't need to go out, don't go out. If you don't need to mix with crowds, don't mix with crowds. Because as you can see with the NCDC numbers that are coming up, we are far from reaching the peak of this epidemic. So that's the message we want to send out. A lot of the decisions we took today also looked at the economic impact of these restrictions that we've had over the last 6-8 weeks. No country in the world can sustain a complete lockdown for a prolonged period of time. And that's why we've taken some of the decisions we've taken today.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sani Aliyu. The PTF has made it clear that the new set of guidelines are to ensure a balance between saving lives and saving livelihoods. It's back to the studio.
Thank you very much, Mitari. I know it's a huge relief for some Nigerians, a lot of Nigerians actually, but the most important thing is for us to stay safe. Let's look at other issues. The judiciary under the 5 years of President Muhammadu Buhari has been described by legal luminaries on NTA's Good Morning Nigeria as replete with reforms that guaranteed autonomy of the third arm of government and accelerated the dispensation of criminal justice in the country. The Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, SAN, says more executive orders that would empower local governments to function effectively should be expected by Nigerians. Let's hear from Lydia Sampson.
The judiciary and upholding the rule of law are among the hallmarks of democracy. However, the judiciary cannot work in isolation. Hence, Gaston Good Morning Nigeria applauded the proactive collaboration among various arms of government to reposition the judiciary and enshrine separation of powers in the last 5 years.
I think what the president has succeeded in doing by way of giving effect to executive orders is to ensure things are properly done, is to displace breaches, displace infractions, and bring about sanity and sanctity as it relates to the operation, enforcement, and application of our laws.
The legislature, as represented by the National Assembly at the federal level, supports both arms of government, the executive and, in this case, the judiciary. And some of the constitution, the amendments that we have witnessed in recent parts were initiated by the National Assembly and have gone to strengthen the judiciary.
On the other hand, some say the last 5 years has been a mixed bag for the judiciary with room for improvement.
The rule of law is not just about government, it's also about the individual citizen and their respect for the rights of each other. And I think that in the reforms that have been done to our criminal justice system, a framework has been put in place. If there is dedicated effort and commitment, it is possible to address the main problems.
This issue of Executive Order 10. I think this is one of the most significant achievements of this administration. And I do hope that the administration will stand its ground, because I understand there is pressure from some quarters.
Under the Buhari administration, the judiciary no longer operates as a rubber stamp, and various reforms have guaranteed the restoration of the integrity of the judiciary as a branch of government. In Abuja, Lydia Samson, NTA News.
Let's go to Enugu now to join Chinenye to give us more reports on Nationwide. Chinenye?
Thank you, Ruth, for joining us in Enugu. Consistent with her strategies for containing the spread of the dreaded coronavirus, the Enugu state government is for the second time decontaminating markets in the state, beginning with the Obete main market, Enugu. The exercise, according to the state chief fire officer, is in line with the state government's efforts at keeping all public places hygienically safe. Susan Eze now reports.
As part of proactive measures to guard against community transmission of the coronavirus in the state, the program of decontaminating markets, parks, fuel stations, court premises and other public places is planned in phases to ensure consistency. The exercise, which began on the 1st of April this year, having covered many locations in the state, is now being repeated at the Obete main market, Enugu, even as fuel stations in the state are also being covered. The Chief Security Officer, Obete Main Market, and State Chairman, Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, Enugu Chapter, appreciated the state government's consistency in sanitizing the environments.
The whole market was happy because this is the second time they are coming to fumigate during this pandemic.
We pray that within the possible time that all the stations will be disinfected, and this will go a long way in curbing the spread of coronavirus within our environment.
The Chief Fire Officer, Okudile Oha, maintained that the decontamination exercise is a continuous one.
Why we are coming here today is because the market has not been open. When once the market reopens, it will be a weekly event.
He advised residents to cooperate with government by obeying all safety guidelines to curtail the spread of the disease. In Enugu, Susan Eze, NTA News.
An Anambra State Police Command has intercepted a 6-man syndicate that specializes in diverting goods to Onitsha. Udo Koronkwachukwu reports that 2 trailer loads of aluminium raw materials worth more than 10 million naira stolen from Lagos were recovered by the police.
Police Public Relations Officer, Anambra State Police Command, Haruna Mohammed, says the suspects were arrested on a tip-off by the police in Onitsha while attempting to collect a sum of 2.5 million naira from the alleged buyer at the Port Harcourt Street branch of the Zenith Bank, Onitsha.
On the 27th of this month, precisely at about 8 a.m., the police operative attached to CPS Onitsha, following intelligence report, intercepted 2 trucks conveying this aluminium iron rod, and investigation revealed that the properties were diverted from the company and that the property was over 10 million naira.
One of the suspects was said to have allegedly loaded the goods at the company premises to be taken to Apapa Wharf on 25th March 2020, but conspired to divert the goods to a warehouse in Amowu, Odofin, Lagos. They were further accused of contracting the alleged buyer, who recruited 2 drivers from Edo State to convey the goods to Onitsha. Having concluded their investigation, the Anambra State Police Command says their Lagos State counterpart will take over the case for prosecution. In Oka, Udo Okoronkwachukwu, NTA News.
And that is it from Enugu Roots. It's back to you in Abuja for more on Nationwide. Good evening.
Thanks, Chinenye. With COVID-19 on the increase, frontline workers are stepping up efforts beyond management of patients to also provide protective equipment for themselves and others. The National Association of Nurses and Midwives in Taraba State took this bold step when it supplied the state specialist hospital with face masks and hand sanitizers. Joseph Otson reports.
Cases of coronavirus in Nigeria has been on the increase since it broke out, with over 10,000 cases recorded so far. This is also placing high demands on protective equipment, especially for health workers who are the first contact with patients and highly exposed to infection. With this huge demand, health workers don't want to leave responsibility of providing protective gears to government alone and are therefore putting resources together to produce items like face masks and hand sanitizers for frontline workers. This is what National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives, Taraba State Chapter, is doing. The association handed over a large chunk of protective equipment to management of Taraba State Specialist Hospital. David Namushi is the chairman of the association.
In this pandemic, definitely we have to provide some of this palliative to be able to support their work. I want to tell you that this is actually locally made. With the efforts of our colleagues who are also health professionals at the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria.
The State Specialist Hospital is one of the facilities designated to manage COVID-19 patients.
We actually managed 2 cases in the hospital here, and they later converted to negative, and they have since been discharged. These PPEs is to go a long way in supporting the management of these patients.
The association says it will continue to mobilize resources to support other health facilities in the state to contain spread of COVID-19. In Jalingo, Joseph Sound Otsen, NTA News.
And from Jalingo, let's go to Kaduna to join Suleiman to bring us a report from that end.
Thank you for joining us in Kaduna. There are growing concerns about allegations of extortion of drivers conveying food and essential goods by security operatives enforcing interstate travel restrictions on the highways. The report.
With a daily average of 10 to 20,000 vehicles crisscrossing on a normal day, Kaduna remains a strategic melting pot in the north, linking all the states of the region. The outbreak of coronavirus pandemic necessitated the imposition of lockdown order and interstate travel restriction, allowing only those conveying food items or on essential duties passage. Complaints and allegations of extortion by security operatives who have been drafted to enforce the restriction order are, however, on the increase by drivers.
Yes, I have such complaint, but I think it was not within Kaduna State, but it's after they have passed, especially the northern states. Once they go from Abuja upward, that's where they get most of the problem.
Police authorities and other sister agencies involved in the enforcement say they are yet to receive any formal complaint on the alleged extortion.
The Corps, at the moment, stands vehemently against any act of corruption, and if such is found or reported to the command, it will be investigated duly, and whoever is found culpable will be sanctioned accordingly.
We have disciplinary actions against whosoever is found wanting on such cases of extortion, molestation, and other things.
Extortion is a criminal offense, and any security personnel who is found to have extorted money from any passenger or a violator of this order for COVID-19 will face the wrath of the law.
While other frontline workers are working to sustain the fight against COVID-19, vigilance by security operatives remain key to checking violation of preventive protocols.
And with that report, Nationwide continues with Ruth in Abuja.
Thanks, Suleiman. Unfortunately, we're done. Thank you very much for staying with us. I'm Ruth Aguele. Bye.
This is NTA International.
For now, the best and most efficient way to avoid getting infected is through regular hygienic and sanitary practices, as well as social distancing. As individuals, we remain the greatest weapon to fight this pandemic. By washing our hands regularly with clean water and soap, disinfecting frequently used surfaces and areas, coughing into a tissue or elbow, and strictly adhering to infection prevention control measures in health facilities, we can contain this virus.
You can follow us on all our social media platforms: Facebook at NTA Network News, Instagram at NTA Network, Twitter at NTA News Now, YouTube at NTA News Online. Or visit www.nta.ng. For live streaming, visit www.nta.ng/live. Now, you can stay updated on the go, be it on your TV, iPhone, laptop, or iPad, or download the NTA mobile application from your Play Store or App Store. NTA, you can beat the rich.
The Nok people of Nigeria show their art of blacksmithing, which dates back to the 6th century BC. These Nigerian metal workers developed a technology that gave them the upper hand in life and would prove to be a technology to revolutionize the world and make iron working, maize farming, hunting, and war much more efficient. The evidence linking iron smelting in Nigeria to the Nok culture is a very strong one. The techniques of iron working are precise and more likely to have spread from one source. Iron does not occur in nuggets. It has to be smelted by heating the one to a high temperature in an enclosed furnace, blasting it through enforced drought. Archaeological evidence suggests that knowledge of how to work iron existed in Diama in the Lake Chad region in the 5th century AD, but was known in the area of the Nok culture in the Niger Valley much earlier in the 3rd century AD. Although it cannot be presumed that the technology of iron spread to different parts of Nigeria only from Nok, but the chances that Nok was the most important single source of the diffusion within Nigeria cannot be overemphasized. The West African blacksmith mastered a tool that is still in use today. Iron has been a part of everyday life ever since. The intricate designs and master craftsmanship of the African blacksmith was truly unmatched in its time. Everything they created was done with a purpose in society. From the plows used for digging and turning over soil, and the hoes used for breaking up soil and removing weed, to the weaponry for hunting and protection, the African blacksmiths were the key to survival for the Nok, Ife, Oyo, and the Mande people, to mention just a few. The equipment used in